Good evening and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Defining Virtuosity. My name is Odin Rathnam and I'm professor of violin at Cleveland State University. Tonight I'm going to go through Wohlfahrt Etude number 36, a moderato, which is an excellent study for arpeggios and scales across four strings in first and third position. It can be played at a variety of tempi, and as always I would encourage students to begin slowly and be very, very strict about left hand finger actions and intonation. The best way to check that, I've expressed before, is using always some type of a slur, whether it's a chained bowing between two notes, or a two-note slur, or a three-note slur, or a six-note slur, to make sure that regardless the number of notes that we're hooking together, whether it's just two through a chain bowing or two separate notes that are slurred together, or three or six, that the finger action remains the same and the tone remains even in the bow. As soon as you're confident with all of the notes of the etude, I would practice it quite a bit as a six-note slurred pattern with various rhythms. So the general idea is to be able to play it evenly. Now, there are some challenges in this study. Sometimes when we play it separately, we have to cross two strings. A few spots, at the very end, for example, we have to cross strings that are, well, I mean, I should say we could cross one string most of the time, but sometimes we have to cross two. And an important point to remember is if you look very carefully at the bow, when it touches different strings, a different point in the bow hair would grab the new string. And to make sure that we're always aware of where that is and we still can catch when we're off the string, it's very wise to practice this collé. So if you take a passage that has a larger string crossing, like across two strings instead of across one string, at the end of the etude, the fourth measure from the end, that little exercise will make you realize that as fiddlers we can have a tendency to overcompensate, try to move the bow in addition horizontally in addition to crossing, and that actually is incorrect and not efficient. You want to be able to catch the new string from a slightly different point in the bow than the old string. So if you end a G string note here and the first note on the E string is here, you can see clearly those 2 points are almost 2 inches apart. And you want to make sure that kind of motion is observed in terms of how we cross when we do it off the string. Other rhythms that should be practiced are, my favorites include practicing the rhythm down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, with a Z pattern. Using more bow here, less, more, less, more. And for the smaller note values, use the collet. Don't use big muscles at the shoulder or the elbow for the shorter note values in a dotted rhythm in this case. Focus on the bigger Z pattern in your mind. You know, the big pattern. And use the fingers for the smaller note values in between. You'll get less tight. Another thing to practice is the rhythm short, short, long, short, short, long. Yeah? Or the opposite. And then, of course, I've talked before about the speed bursts. One of the important things that I try to stress in this etude is making sure that the shift from the second finger G natural on the E string to the first finger A in the third position is really smooth and that there's nothing resisting. The points that can resist are the inside of the first finger squeezing against here, or the thumb pressure being too heavy, or the fingertip pressure on the note before the shift, in this case the 2, being too hard. If you think this way, that will help you to get rid of that sense of lurching. I almost pretend when I'm playing it fast that the note before the shift doesn't exist. I just barely touch it. But it's also good to do because that improves the articulation. Yeah. Other points. To practice the spiccato, we want to remember that we're on various planes and that this type of slow dropped spiccato would feel like the letter U almost, that the strokes come in and out of the string, and that we let the natural flexibility of the bow stick help us with that. So we don't try to make the bow bounce. This is where this becomes difficult. Those two string differences, even there, it caught me a little bit. You want to really be aware that a different part of the hair touches the lower string than the one that you just finished on the upper string. Another secret there is to slow the bow speed going up. More, less, more. Not to do. That will tend to make the bottom string not as clear if you use too much bow on the last note on the upper string. This etude should be practiced obviously slowly and go through the different steps. You know, collet, very healthy. And don't just practice collays at the frog. If you really want to learn the balance of the bow in your right hand, it's very wise to practice your collays in the square position of the bow and still hang in the upper arm. Because then you have to learn on the notes where the bow comes out of the string not to raise your elbow, not to do this, to raise, because then you're going to confuse string crossings, you're going to lose a consistent amount of leverage into the string, so dynamics will be affected. So you want to make sure that your arm feels like this the whole time. Even if I do a down bow here and up bow here. So the feeling from your elbow to your shoulder is one of hanging, really hanging. And the bow, if it comes off because of the balance in the fingers, not because of any effort from the upper arm. So this will improve greatly your control of the spiccatos that happen further from the frog. So I really urge you to practice that. And again, I always, at this stage in a young artist's development, I always emphasize opening and closing the elbow as well. So I strongly urge you to practice it as well with a broad stroke in the last third of the bow, sort of. This kind of idea. This will give you a number of different opportunities for how to practice the piece. And don't forget also to practice the spiccato strokes reversed so that you challenge the arm to be comfortable with the reverse string crossings. So, you know, the possibilities are really remarkable that way. Another way of practicing it is with 3 downs, 3 ups, or 2 downs and 4 ups. When you do this, the connection between the last note of the slur and the first up, it's still good to feel a tiny bit of out to in as you prepare to grab that first up bow with the finger stroke. Come in a little bit and grab it, scoop it. Yeah. What that does is it gives a little extra energy on the first of the 3 ups, and the second 2 happen almost as an impulse by themselves. At faster tempi, again, the natural ability of the bow to bounce on its own comes into play. It's the same kind of thing that we would use in the first variation of the 24th Caprice. And of course, 2 plus 4. All right, so I think this is enough to sort of give you an idea. Maybe a last comment would be for more advanced students. It's marked forte. I would not play the whole thing forte. I would experiment with following lines and creating shapes and being able to do them almost at will. You know, being able to do or the opposite. You know, being able to follow the line or do the opposite. You know. It can be done very playfully that way, and I really like to have students do that just as an exercise in flexibility, because very often when we have to crescendo or diminuendo or speed up or slow down, these are the moments when unfortunately, especially talented students will have a tendency to correlate intention with tension. So we don't want to make a crescendo make us work harder. We just want to do whatever is necessary to achieve the crescendo. In this case, I actually think slower bow speeds almost like being a little lazy when I go up. So, I hope this is helpful, and I will be uploading another couple of videos here shortly. If this was of value to you, I hope you will subscribe and recommend this channel to others. Thanks for watching.